Let's learn how to work with JavaScript and select statements. Let's go ahead and create a brand new project, File, New Project, and we're going to choose an ASP.NET web application, and we're going to call this project Select Me, and click OK, and then we'll go ahead and make sure it's an empty project, click OK, and it's going to generate that project. And then, as you've seen in the other videos, the first thing we need to do is we need to go and create an HTML file. So we'll come to our project. I'm going to close this window first. Come to our project, right mouse click on it, and we'll choose Add an HTML file, and we're going to call it Index, since that's the starting web page usually for websites. And click OK, and here is the HTML that we have to work with. So let's talk about what I want to do logic-wise first, and then we'll implement it. So I want to go ahead and write a website that has a button on it that when the user clicks on it, we prompt the user to try to guess what their age is. And so we're going to generate a random number and ask the user if the number we generated is their age. And if they enter in yes, then we'll go ahead and dynamically write some HTML out to a paragraph tag with the ID called result. And if they said no, then we're going to go ahead and call another JavaScript function that generates another random number using a lower range and an upper range. And then we'll continue this process until we can figure out what their age is. And once we guess it, then we will display what their age is and how many times it took to guess. So the first thing I want to do is come down into my HTML, and I want to create an input tag with the type equals button. And the name on that button is going to be guess age. And then if we ever click on that button, we want to go ahead and call the JavaScript function guess age. So that will be a button that shows up with the value of guess age, and if we click on it, we go to that JavaScript function. And then at the very end, we're going to have a p tag with the ID named result. And when we find out our information, we're going to dynamically write data to that p tag using the DOM, the document.getElementById, ID result, and then we're writing that dynamic HTML. So let's go write some JavaScript. Now remember, if we're going to write JavaScript, first thing we need to do is we need to have a script tag, and that's where we're going to write our JavaScript functions. First thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and paste in a function I found on W3 Schools, and it allows us to call it to generate a random number with a lower range and an upper range. So I've already got my script tag, and I'm going to paste in the function I found on W3 Schools that when I call it, we're going to pass two values to it, a min value and a max value. Now this min and max are going to be inclusive values, meaning that this number, the lower range, and the max number will be included in generating the random number. Then we're going to use a math.floor JavaScript, which gets rid of the decimal of a number and just gives us the nearest whole number. And then we are going to call the math.random, which gives us a number between 0 and 0.999 whatever, multiplied by our max value minus the min plus 1. So if our max value was 100 and our min was 0, then we would make sure that we said max 100 minus min 0 plus 1. So that would equal 101 plus the min, which is 0 again. So it would be 0 to 101, which, remember, when you do a random number and you multiply it by a number here, that number is going to be 1 less. So if I said 100 here, or 101, then that number is going to be 0 to 100. If I said 100, it'd be 0 to 99. So this function, when we call it, will give us a random number with our lower range and upper range included in the generating of that number. The next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and write the guess age JavaScript function, and in it we need to go and get some data from the end user. And so I'm going to have to create some variables first. And let me go ahead and paste in the variables that I want to get, and I'll explain what they do. So this variable, the guess, that variable is going to be used to hold the random number that we generate. That's our guess. This variable is going to be the counter of the number of tries it takes us to guess. This variable keeps us in a loop and will continue until we've guessed the number. This variable will be the prompt from the user, and that's either going to be a Y or an N. In other words, did we get the number right? And if we got that number right, they'll enter in a Y. If they didn't, they'll enter in an N. This number is when we prompt them to ask if the number is higher than our guess. And then this number will be the lower range of our guess and the upper range of our guess. And we're going to start at 0 to 100. So when we first run this, 0 will be sent to min, 100 will be set to max. So it will be our 0 to 101, which will be 0 to 100. But we'll see that actually happen when we call the function. The next thing I want to do is go ahead and try to guess a number. And the way I'll do that is I'm going to call the getRndInteger JavaScript function that I have up here, and it's looking for 2 values as parameters. So I have to pass it 2 values. I'm going to go ahead and pass it the value of iBegin, which is 0, and iEnd, which is 100. And so it's going to use those 2 values to generate a random number between 0 and 100. Now that I have that value, I can ask the end user if we guess their number, and we're going to go ahead and store their value to the answer that they give us. But realize we want to keep doing this over and over until we guess it right. So I'm going to say while while sContinue is equal to a yes, and remember a double equal in JavaScript does a comparison. Let me go ahead and scroll the code up some, and notice that our sContinue was already set to a Y. So when we first drop into this loop, we say, do you want to continue? And it says, yes, we do, because it is a Y. So now that we want to continue, let's ask them if we guess their number, and we'll store their answer. So we'll say prompt is your number, and we'll go ahead and concatenate on our guess that we just made, and we're going to concatenate on a question mark, and we're going to tell them we want them to enter in a Y or an N. And we're not going to do any error checking on this. We're just going to go ahead and try to give them an idea of what they should enter. Let's go see if that's what it was. So we'll say if the answer they gave us is equal to Y, then what do you know? Well, you know that you guessed their number. So we'll say sContinue is equal to no, because we don't want to keep guessing. So we know that that answer is, or the number that we guessed was their number. Otherwise, we know that sAnswer was an N, and we didn't guess their number. So we need to go ahead and do something to where we can generate a brand new number and try again. So this area will be for the code that says we did not guess their number correctly. But remember, we also need to do this. iCount is our variable that was going to keep track of our number of tries. And we need to increment it because we already guessed once. And we could have put it there, we could have put it somewhere else, but I'll go ahead and say we do need to increment it at least once because we made a guess. Now right here, that's where we need to find out if its number is lower or higher. So I'm going to say S higher or lower is equal to, and we're going to prompt, is your age higher than what we just guessed? And they're going to enter in a Y or an N. And so if it is higher, if their birthday, the number of years that they have is higher than our number, they're going to enter in a Y. And we need to go and generate a brand new random number using a different range of numbers. So I just pasted some code in that says if they said that their number is higher than what we guess, then we want to change the range of the numbers. For instance, if we use the numbers 0 and 100 the first time, and if we guessed that the number was 30, and they said their number is higher, then we don't want to start at 0 and 100 again. We want to start at 30 to 100. So what we do is we say our beginning number is going to be whatever we guessed plus 1, because we know it's not 30, so it's really 31 or higher. And then if you look at the other code down below, this says, is your age higher than? No, it's not. So we guessed too high. So once again, we started at 0 and 100 the first time. We guessed 30, and they said, no, the number's lower. So we still want to start at 0, but we want to go 0 to 30 minus 1, because we know 30 wasn't the number. So we want the number to be 0 to 29. And then what we need to do is now generate a brand new number by calling that function that we wrote in earlier from our W3 schools. So we're now going to say, let's do another guess. And we're going to go get a random number using our new range of begin and end. So we generate that random number, we come up to here and we say, now is your random number our new number. We increment our counter, and then if it is, we're done and we get out. If it isn't, we once again ask them if it's higher, and if it's not higher, we know it's lower. We change the boundary and we keep trying to minimize that range of numbers to find which is the right number that we have. And then when we're all done with this loop, which it'll stay in as long as we're trying to guess. So once we're done with that loop and we have guessed their number, then what we want to do is come out to the DOM and we want to go and get some element by ID. And remember that P tag that we wrote out there? We said the ID was called result. So let's go get that result and we'll modify the inner HTML, and let's dynamically write some HTML to it. So let's write your age is, and we'll go ahead and concatenate on the number, because we know that that's the number now that we kept guessing until we finally got it right. And I'm going to concatenate. I'm going to drop to the next line, and we'll say, and it took, and let's concatenate on the number of tries, and that will now generate this dynamic HTML. Remember, HTML is just strings, so we could put anything we wanted in here. We could add a break tag, and if we wanted to, we could add let's make the number of tries we took bold. So we'll say strong to there, and we'll come over to here and we'll end the strong. Notice we're just typing in HTML tags, and when you build that string and you pass it to inner HTML, it just renders it as if it's HTML. We could even add another BR tag right there if we wanted to and drop it down a line. Let's go ahead and save that, and let's run our program and see what bugs we have, and we'll try to guess the age. Guess the age. Okay, the age is 54, but the first guess is 31. Is that the number? Capital N. No, it's not the number. Is it higher than 31? Capital Y. Yes, it is. Is it 85? Because now what we did is we said, let's use that first number as a lower range and still go up to 100. No, it's not 85. Are you higher than 85? No, we're not. So now it says, okay, let's use 85 as the upper boundary. And it keeps trying to narrow the range. Is your number 57? No. Are you higher? No. Drops to 41? No. Are you higher than 41? Yes. 42? No. Higher? Yes. 44? No. Higher? Yes. 48? No. Higher? Yes. 54? Yes. Click OK. Your age is 54 and it took 8, notice it's bold, tries to guess it. And that is how you can use JavaScript with if statements, if else, and a while loop, and writing your own functions and actually calling functions to solve logic.